My name is Mercedes Vale, 26 years old. I woke to a silence so complete it felt staged, like a set after the crew has left. Thanksgiving morning in the Kessler house was never silent. By now, Mom should have been tangling the kitchen in the scent of butter and sage. Dad should have been planted in front of the TV with the Macy's parade turned up too loud. Corbin and Sloan should have been slamming doors, arguing about the good bathroom and who stole whose hair product. Instead, the only sound was the heating system clicking on with a hollow, mechanical sigh. I sat up too fast, hair sticking to my cheek, pulse already ahead of me. "Hello?" My voice sounded thin in the stillness. Nothing answered back. No cabinets, no water in the pipes, no feet thudding on stairs. I slid my legs to the floor and winced at the cold of the hardwood under my bare soles. The hallway yawned open. Sloane's room, sheets snapped tight like a hotel bed, Corbin's door gaping, the mess curated into an eerie neatness. Beds made, rooms empty. Not slept in at all. On the first floor, the kitchen gleamed as if for an open house. Counters bare, no turkey thawing, no onions sweating in a pan, no stacks of casserole dishes waiting their turn in the oven, just my chipped coffee mug from last night, ringed with a half-moon stain inside the white porcelain. The calendar on the fridge had today circled, my own handwriting tidy and hopeful. Uncle Dean's, 2 p.m. The ink felt like a joke now. I checked the driveway, empty concrete. Mom's sedan, gone. Dad's SUV, gone. Corbin's wheezing Jeep, gone. Even the 7-seater I'd filled with gas yesterday for the drive to Uncle Dean's. A ridiculous thought tried to soothe me. They ran out for cranberries, for butter, for some last-minute thing. But the house didn't feel like they'd just stepped out. It felt abandoned, cold. I grabbed my phone from the counter, no texts, no missed calls. I scrolled to Mom's contact and air snagged in my chest. Gone. Dad's, gone. Corbin, Sloan, even Rhett. The screen showed scorched earth. A memory slid into place with obscene neatness. Last night, Rhett propped against the doorframe, casual and smiling. "Hey sis, can I check the score real quick? My phone's dead." 19 years old and never once remembers a charger. I'd handed him my phone without thinking. Clever, I thought now, and not clever enough. The call log was still there, and my brain knew their numbers like a skeleton knows its own shape. I dialed Uncle Dean from memory and paced the spotless kitchen as it rang. He answered on the second ring, voice light, jangly with a vacation brightness that didn't belong to New England in November. "Hello? Uncle Dean, it's me. Where is everyone?" A pause like a stumble. "Mercedes? Oh, you're still home?" Something in his tone made the back of my neck prickle. In the silence between us, I heard waves, patient and indifferent, and a thin thread of ukulele from far away. Not his dining room with the long table where we were supposed to gather. Not the cold, leaf-clotted yard outside his colonial. Somewhere warm. "Where are you?" I asked, even though the answer was already arranging itself in front of me, like luggage lined up at a gate. He lowered his voice. "Well, your parents wanted to surprise everyone for their 30th. Maui. They flew last night. The flights were, last minute." "Everyone?" I said. The word tasted like air before a storm. "They figured you were busy with work," he pushed on, and I pictured his face, that pleasant, apologetic smile he wore when he wanted to get to the end of something without being the bad guy. "And they didn't want you worrying about the expense." The expense, the mortgage, the utilities, the 6 years I had been the human automatic payment while they curated their lives around me. In the background, another voice rose, too close to his phone. Sloan, exasperated, sugarcoating nothing. "Are you talking to her?" I thought we agreed to just let her stay home. I hung up before the sound could cut me. The kitchen sharpened. My reflection in the sliding door looked too clear, like I'd stepped out of myself and left the ordinary one behind. I waited for rage. What came was colder, cleaner. It reached my bones like fresh water. I set the phone down and opened the bottom drawer of the kitchen desk. Receipts, folders, a drift of rubber bands and dead pens. The 3-inch binder, mine, was there, its plastic cool under my palm. I brought it to the table and opened to the tab marked Mortgage, Support. I did the math the way you close a wound, precisely, quickly. $2,000 a month, 72 months. A number that should have been a down payment, a safety net, a future, lay now like a sunken anchor, $144,000. I flipped another tab. Purchases. Large. The 80-inch 4K TV, my year-end bonus receipt sleeved and highlighted, the 4-door smart fridge I bought during the heat wave, the washer and dryer I installed after Sloan, hand on hip, deadpanned, Mercedes, these belong in a gas station. The espresso machine no one ever filled except me. The mesh Wi-Fi nodes that powered Corbin's endless startup pivots and Sloan's Instagram empire. All mine, all documented, all paid for with my hours. I moved through the house, inventorying aloud to the empty rooms because hearing it steadied me. TV, fridge, espresso, router mesh, dishwasher, washer, dryer. I scanned drawers for manuals and warranties. In the desk, beneath a nest of paper clips, I found something I didn't remember. A thin manila file labeled, in Dad's blocky hand, HELOC Inquiry. When I slipped the papers free, a half-shredded mailer fell out. Tap your home's hidden value. The tear stopping just before the pre-approved box. My name wasn't on it, and somehow my stomach dropped anyway. I slid the file back, the way you mark the scene of a fire with chalk after it's out. The house felt like a museum of my enabling. The pricey router node in the hallway blinking like a heartbeat. The fridge humming with the quiet arrogance of stainless steel. On the mantel, a framed photo of us, mouths open with laughter at a barbecue I organized and paid for, Dad's arm heavy around my shoulders. I stared until the memory detached from the picture and floated away. I opened my laptop. Local moving companies, holiday service, immediate. Most were closed. One ad glowed, premium holiday emergency move, rates double. I dialed. Reliable movers, this is Troy. Hi, Troy. My voice surprised me, calm as glass. I need to move tomorrow morning. Major appliances and a few furniture pieces. Documentation for ownership is ready. He hesitated, then settled into logistics. We can do 8 a.m., but I should warn you. The rate is fine. Address? I gave it. And one more thing, I said. I'll need protective blankets, tie-downs for electronics, and someone who knows how to disconnect a water line without flooding the floor. He chuckled softly, not unkindly. You've done this before. No, I said. I've paid for it before. We locked the time. I clicked out of the call and into apartments. Studio. Immediate occupancy for an additional fee. Photos of closets that were honest about their smallness. Windows that didn't pretend. A floor plan that said what it was without apology. I called, put down the deposit with fingers that didn't shake, and scheduled the lease signing for tomorrow afternoon. 3 months paid in advance. My decision felt less like leaving and more like stepping back into my own outline. I went room to room with the binder and a roll of painter's tape, tagging what was mine with small blue flags. The work steadied me. The house slowly reassembled itself in my head as a ledger of entries and debits, not a family myth. When I stepped back into the kitchen, the late morning light had turned thin and metallic, the way it does right before winter decides it's serious. Under the calendar, the mail pile waited in its usual slump. My thumb flipped through catalogs and bills, pausing on 3 envelopes I'd never registered. One bore the bank's logo and a faint coffee ring I knew I hadn't made. In the corner, a number ending in 73 that tugged at recognition the way a face across a crowded room does. I slid the envelope into the stack to deal with later and kept moving. The new lease email pinged. The mover's confirmation followed, crisp with the outline of a future that finally belonged to me. My phone buzzed again. Uncle Dean. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom. Then Dad. Then numbers with no names attached because my contacts had been scrubbed. I watched calls multiply without answering. I didn't owe my reactions to anyone. In the pantry, I found 6 boxes of Dad's sugar cereal and a parade of diet crackers Mom bought when she wanted penance without change. Beside them, a rubber-banded cluster of receipts, groceries, cleaners, filters, all in my name. I slid them into the binder behind Utilities, General, and felt a click inside, a small internal notch aligning. Not rage, not relief. Something like gravity reasserting itself after a long, dizzy spell. I made coffee on the machine I'd paid for because I was still here, And this was still my morning. The kitchen filled with the sound and smell I'd expected to wake to, only cleaner somehow, like air after thunder. I opened drawers, doing the last sweep for the paperwork that always slides where it shouldn't. Beneath takeout menus and elastic bands, my fingers touched a thick envelope, sealed and heavy, its title in neat, bankish type, mortgage, recast request. My breath held. My name wasn't on the front. The flap was still glued shut. I turned it over once, twice, feeling the weight of it in my palm. I didn't open it. I slid the envelope under my binder like a card I wasn't ready to play and lifted my eyes to the empty, gleaming kitchen that finally looked honest to me. The heat clicked on again, faint and far away. 8 a.m., I said to the room, to the day, to the version of me who had waited too long. We started 8. When the knock came, it was punctual, precise, 8 Huntwalk a.m. on the dot. Through the frosted glass, I saw 3 men in matching navy jackets, their truck idling in the driveway. Reliable movers. I opened the door, and the morning air cut through my sweater, sharp as a blade. "Ms. Vale?" the foreman asked, clipboard in hand. I nodded, holding the binder tight against my chest like armor. "We're ready when you are," he said. "Start in the living room," I replied. "TV first." Inside, the air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something else. Emptiness, maybe. The foreman, Troy, raised an eyebrow at the massive 80-inch TV mounted above the fireplace. "Nice setup," he said. "My $10,500 bonus from last March," I answered automatically, flipping to the receipt in my binder and tapping the plastic sleeve. He gave a low whistle. "You've got your paperwork together, huh?" "Every penny." They worked quickly, quietly. 2 men unscrewed the wall mount. The third wrapped the screen in padded blankets. The sound of tape tearing echoed through the house like distant thunder. I stood in the doorway and watched the screen disappear into the truck, a rectangle of bare wall left behind. It felt like watching my past being packed into boxes, neat, labeled, final. "Washer and dryer next," I said. They followed me down the hall. Sloane's voice from memory echoed faintly. "God, Mercedes, these things are prehistoric. Can we get something that doesn't look like it came from a gas station?" I pointed at the sleek silver machines. "Those." Troy checked his clipboard. "Disconnecting the water lines. Got it." He moved carefully, and when a few droplets splashed onto the tile, he wiped them up with a rag. Room by room, the movers followed my calm instructions. Fridge, dishwasher, espresso machine, Wi-Fi nodes, 4 of them, blinking in perfect sync, like tiny hearts fading out one by one as the cables unplugged. They asked no questions, and I offered no explanations. Around noon, the house had started to echo. Each empty wall returned my footsteps a little louder. Troy glanced at me as his crew loaded the final box marked kitchen. Appliances. "Mind if we take a quick break for lunch, ma'am?" "Go ahead," I said. He nodded toward me, respectful, and the 3 men disappeared outside to eat in their truck. I stayed behind, wandering through the hollow spaces. The living room was stripped bare except for the nails where family photos had once hung. One of the nails bent slightly upward, like it wanted to point at something. On the mantel, a lone magnet, Hawaiian sunset, the one I'd found behind the fridge yesterday, sat crooked. I picked it up and turned it in my hand. They'd been to Maui before, without me. I placed the magnet on the counter beside my binder, a quiet reminder. Then I sat down and opened the manila folder I'd found yesterday. Mortgage, recast request. The glue tore softly as I peeled it open. Inside, a printed form from Everlane Bank. At the bottom, a typed line that made my skin prickle. Applicant, Mark and Brenda Kessler. Cosigner income verified, Mercedes Vale, my name, my salary. A neat little forgery made from data only my parents had access to. They'd used my income to qualify for a lower interest rate, to save themselves money while still letting me shoulder the bills. Not criminal, maybe, but intimate theft all the same, a different kind of burglary. I folded the form once, slid it into a plastic sleeve, and added it to my binder behind evidence, financial. When I looked up, sunlight from the kitchen window had turned gold, slanting across the empty countertops. The men returned and worked until 4. When they were done, Troy wiped his hands on a towel and walked over. All packed, Ms. Vale. The truck's full. Address for delivery? I gave him the new one. He hesitated, then said quietly, I hope you're getting out of something bad. I managed a small smile. Just getting out. He nodded. Good for you. The words were simple, but they hit harder than he knew. After the truck rumbled away, the house felt weightless. I walked through it one last time, filming each room on my phone, proof there was no damage, no reason to call it theft. Upstairs, my old bedroom looked like a motel room, stripped after checkout. The mattress gone, dresser gone, shelves bare. Only the faint outline of furniture left behind in dust. In that emptiness, I saw 6 years of misplaced faith, like fingerprints that wouldn't wash away. As twilight settled, I showered in the ghost of the bathroom, the water lukewarm because I'd already scheduled the utility cutoff. I dried off with the one towel I'd kept aside, folded it neatly into my duffel, and lay on the floor under a thin blanket. The house creaked, shifting in the November wind. No laughter, no footsteps above me, no TV humming through the wall, just quiet, real quiet. It wasn't peace yet, but it was the outline of it. I must have dozed off. Sometime past midnight, my phone buzzed against the hardwood. The sound startled me upright. Block number. I hesitated, then pressed play. At first, only static. Then, faint breathing and a whisper. Small, shaky, unmistakable. You can't do this. Sloan. The message cut off. No follow-up call. No text. Just that single, trembling line hanging in the dark. For a long time, I sat there, phone warm in my hand, heart slow and deliberate. Then I whispered back into the silence, as if she could hear it through the walls she helped build between us. Watch me. I lay back down, eyes open to the ceiling, the moonlight painting thin bars across the empty room. Somewhere between exhaustion and freedom, a thought flickered. Tomorrow they'd wake in Maui, sip pineapple cocktails, and think the world still belonged to them. They had no idea what was already gone. I smiled, the first true one in years, and let the dark carry me into morning. 6 days later, my phone buzzed with a notification from the Ring app I'd forgotten to uninstall. It was a clear November afternoon, and I was sipping coffee in my new studio apartment, sunlight cutting across the bare wooden floor. When I tapped the screen, the feed opened to a familiar sight, my old front porch. The Kesslers were back. Mom, Dad, Corbin, Sloan, and Rhett stood clustered near the door, their faces pink from the cold, tan lines sharp against their skin. Dad fumbled with his keys. Mom clutched a pineapple souvenir wrapped in plastic, and Sloan rolled her suitcase up the steps with the practiced irritation of someone used to service. They looked smaller than I remembered. Don't forget, the light switch in the hall is finicky, Mom called as Dad finally got the door open. They disappeared inside. I turned the volume up and waited. 3 seconds. 2. 1. Mark? Mom's voice crackled through the speaker. The lights aren't working. Dad's reply came muffled. Hang on, I'll check the breaker. More silence. Then the rising panic of discovery. Where's the TV? Corbin's voice, higher than usual. Dad, come look at this. Footsteps, frantic now. Mom's gasp. The fridge, it's gone. Everything's gone. I leaned back in my chair, watching their chaos unfold in miniature on my phone screen. It was almost cinematic. The tilt of the camera, the cold light, the disbelief blooming into accusation. Dad's voice cut through the static, brittle with anger. Call the police. We've been robbed. Mom rushed out onto the porch, clutching her phone. Mark, hurry. Corbin jogged behind her, waving his own phone. Wait, the Ring camera. We can check the footage. I couldn't help it. I smiled. He tapped at his screen, connecting to the same feed I was watching. I saw the moment realization hit him. His face went pale, mouth opening, but no words coming out. She took everything, he whispered. Mom leaned in. What do you mean, she? Corbin turned the phone toward her. On his screen, and mine, played footage from 3 days earlier. Me, clipboard in hand, calm and precise, directing movers as they wrapped the TV, loaded the fridge, boxed the espresso machine. My face was expressionless, efficient. The binder visible under my arm like a weapon made of paper. Mercedes did this? Mom's voice cracked. Why would she? Because she's insane, Sloan snapped, stepping into view. I told you she was getting weird. Dad's jaw clenched, his voice low and dangerous. This is our house. She can't do this. I closed the app and set the phone on the table beside my coffee. Steam curled from the mug, soft and calm, the opposite of what was happening miles away. The quiet of my studio wrapped around me like insulation. It wasn't triumph I felt, just certainty. They were finally living in the world they'd built. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time a different notification. Visitor at front door. I opened it and froze. 2 police officers stood outside my building lobby, my parents behind them. Mom was crying. Dad's face was stone. Corbin and Sloan flanked them, fuming, arms crossed like children waiting to tattle. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Vale, the front desk attendant said, there are police officers here asking to speak with you. They say your family is with them. I took a long breath, steady, grounding. Tell the officers they can come up, I said. Only the officers. A few minutes later, there was a knock. Firm, professional, 2 short raps. I opened the door to find a young officer with close-cropped hair and a name tag reading Brennan. His partner, older, stood slightly behind him, arms folded. Ms. Vale? Yes. He nodded politely. We've received a complaint from your family. They're alleging you removed certain items from their residence. I did, I said evenly. Everything I legally own. May we come in? Please. They stepped inside. The older officer's gaze swept across the room. The 80-inch TV mounted on the wall, the espresso machine gleaming on the counter, the washer and dryer stacked neatly in the corner. Everything fit perfectly in the small space, as though it had always belonged here. I have documentation for all of it, I said, lifting the binder from my desk. Receipts, bank statements, warranties, serial numbers, and payment records. 6 years of them. Brennan accepted the binder, flipping it open. The sound of plastic sleeves sliding filled the quiet. He scanned the first page, brows drawing together slightly. This is the television they mentioned? Yes. Purchased with my own bonus, March of last year. He turned more pages. Refrigerator, washer, dryer, espresso machine. Each entry neat, dated, highlighted. After a minute, he closed the binder carefully and handed it back. Everything appears to be in your name, he said. You're within your rights to remove personal property. Legally, it's not theft. He hesitated. Would you like to file a harassment report? I looked past him, through the window where pale sunlight dripped over the city skyline. For a moment, I imagined their faces downstairs, furious, humiliated, confused. The idea of pressing charges flickered through me like static. Then it passed. No, I said quietly. That won't be necessary. He nodded, a hint of understanding in his eyes. We'll inform them to leave the premises. You shouldn't have further trouble. Thank you, officers. They left with professional efficiency. Through the open window, I could hear muffled voices echoing from below. Dad shouting about rights, Mom crying, Officer Brennan's steady tone cutting through. She has documentation of ownership. You'll need to leave or risk trespassing. A door slammed. A car engine started. Silence returned. I sat back at my desk, heart strangely calm. I'd expected relief, but what I felt was something deeper, a kind of settled quiet that didn't ask for applause. Still, the adrenaline hummed under my skin like an aftershock. I reached for my phone just as it vibrated again. This time not from the Ring app, a text, from an unknown number. Your income verification was received for account ending #73. Thank you for confirming your details. Everlane Bank. My breath caught. 73. The same digits from the envelope I'd found in the drawer. The same line that had made my stomach twist. Someone had used my information again. For a long moment, I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I forwarded it to my work email, added it to a new folder labeled Evidence Ongoing. I didn't reply. Not yet. I closed my laptop and sat back, watching the city turn from gold to gray through the window. The day was fading, but something else was just beginning, a quiet reckoning I hadn't asked for, but one I would see through. On the kitchen counter, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Mom's number. Then Dad's. Then Rhett's. All flashing one after another, relentless. I turned the phone face down and let it buzz itself into silence. Outside, the first snow of the season started to fall, small flakes catching in the fading light. It was peaceful, almost gentle, a clean slate drifting quietly from the sky. And for the first time in years, I let it fall without feeling the weight of anyone else's expectations on my shoulders. The letter arrived 3 weeks later, slipped under my door with the quiet finality of something inevitable. Inside, a small claims court summons. Plaintiffs, Mark and Brenda Kessler. Defendant, Mercedes Vale. Allegations, emotional damages and theft of family property. The amount, $5,000, felt absurd, like they were suing for pride. I stared at the document for a long time, then added it to my binder under a new tab labeled Litigation. The evidence was already there. All I needed was to show up. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, more municipal office than drama. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the kind that make everyone look pale. My parents sat on the other side, whispering in short bursts. Dad's jaw was tight, his suit a size too big. Mom's hands fluttered in her lap like frightened birds. Corbin and Sloan were nowhere in sight. The clerk called our case, Kessler versus Vale. We stepped forward. Dad began first, voice steady but brittle. Your Honor, we're here because our daughter removed property from our home, our television, our appliances, without notice or permission. We've suffered significant hardship, emotional distress. We just want what's fair. He turned slightly, the way people do when they expect agreement. The judge, a man in his 60s with silver hair and half-moon glasses, nodded politely. And your response, Ms. Vale? I didn't speak. Instead, I lifted my binder and placed it gently on his bench. The thud it made sounded heavier than it should have. The judge opened it. One page, then another. Receipts, bank statements, warranty cards. Every item highlighted, dated, paid for, in my name. 5 minutes of turning pages stretched into 10. Finally, he looked up. Mr. Kessler, these documents show that the defendant purchased and maintained all items in question. Is that correct? Dad's mouth opened, then closed. Well, yes, but they were for the family. The judge raised a hand. Did she consent to gift them to the family? No, but then they remain her property. He flipped another page, brow furrowing. I also see evidence of regular payments, $2,000 monthly for 6 years toward your mortgage. That totals, he did a quick calculation, $144,000. Was that part of any written agreement? Dad shifted in his seat. It was informal. She was helping. I see, the judge said evenly. And you're claiming she stole property purchased with her own funds? Mom's voice cracked, desperate. It's not about money, Your Honor. She's our daughter. She can't just walk away like that. The judge set down the binder. Mrs. Kessler, I suggest you consider that very statement carefully. Case dismissed. The gavel struck wood, sharp, final. Outside, the air was cold and clean. I pulled my coat tighter around me. Binder clutched against my side. Behind me, I heard my mother calling my name, but I didn't turn. Not out of spite, out of peace. I'd spent too many years turning toward them. It was time to walk straight. Weeks passed. Winter deepened. News reached me through the family grapevine I'd never officially left. The house, my house, had been foreclosed on after 3 missed payments. They'd moved into a small 2-bedroom rental across town. Dad had to take a full-time job for the first time in 15 years. Mom sold jewelry online. Sloan transferred from her private college to community classes. Corbin was looking for work again, or so Uncle Dean said when he finally called. His voice was gentle, the same tone he used when I was 10 and scraped my knee. Mercedes, they're struggling, he said quietly. Your mom cries every day. I'm sure she does, I replied. You could call, he offered. I could, I said, but I won't. A sigh. You've made your point. It's not a point, I said softly. It's a boundary. That night, I sat on the balcony of my studio, wrapped in a blanket, coffee warming my hands. The city lights blinked below me, tiny lives, tiny stories moving on without permission. I thought about the form from Everlane Bank, the message about income verification. I'd sent it all to a legal aid clinic last week. Their reply was simple. Yes, it was misuse of personal data. You could file a report. We'll support you if you choose. But I didn't. Not yet. There was power in silence, too, and in documentation. 2 months later, I saw Corbin and Sloane at the grocery store. They looked different, unmoored. Sloane's perfect hair dulled at the ends, Corbin's designer jacket wrinkled and worn. They cornered me near the apples. "This isn't funny," Sloane said, her voice tight. "Mom can't sleep. You need to fix this." I picked up a bag of Honey Crisps and met her gaze. "There's nothing to fix." Corbin stepped closer. "At least turn the Wi-Fi back on," he said, desperation threading his words. "How am I supposed to apply for jobs?" "You're 28, I said evenly. "Buy your own router." Their mouths opened, but I was already walking away. My cart's wheels squeaked softly against the tile, the only sound that mattered. Spring came early that year. The air smelled like thawing earth and new beginnings. I spent weekends reorganizing the apartment, hanging shelves, painting the trim, tending a small potted fern on the windowsill. Everything I owned fit neatly within these walls. Everything here was mine. One morning, my phone buzzed with a new message request. From Corbin K. "Hey, sis. Hope you're good. Got an interview at Meridian Tech next week. Could you be a reference? You know how reliable I am when I put my mind to something." I stared at the message for a long moment, then hit ignore, then block. The quiet that followed felt earned. Later that evening, I brewed a fresh cup of coffee in the same machine that once fueled everyone but me. The smell filled the apartment, rich and alive. Through the window, the sunset spilled across the sky in orange and rose. For the first time in years, the silence didn't ache. It hummed. People sometimes ask if I regret it, if I think about the house, about the family unraveling in the wake of my absence. I don't. Regret belongs to the part of me that kept paying. What I feel now is something else, something cleaner. Freedom isn't loud. It doesn't shout or demand. It simply stays. I lifted my mug, savoring the quiet, the warmth, the small space filled only with what I chose to keep. Outside, the evening deepened into a calm that didn't need to be shared. The world was still turning. And finally, for once, it was turning on my terms.